In my 30s, I eventually became chairman of a $250 million charitable foundation, doling out between $60 and $80 million a year to charities.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest for you today. He has sat down with some of the biggest names in politics, some of the biggest names in Christianity and conservative circles and entrepreneur circles. He is an entrepreneur himself with a background in music and real estate. Right? Who would have thought? Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, we have Rick Walker. Thank you so much for joining us, man.
Awesome to be here, Ruslan. Great.
Appreciate you, man. So I had the privilege of being on your podcast recently. That was a super fun conversation. I want to get into so many different things in terms of what you're doing with real estate. You had some really interesting ideas from history that you talked about that I really want to unpack. But for folks who have never heard of Rick Walker, give us the updated, get us up to date on who you are.
Yeah. Cool. So I am very, very good at losing. I'm very good at sacrificing. Professionally, in my 20s, I built a first real estate business. We had 400 W-2 employees by the time I was 26.
Okay.
At the same time, I also became chairman of a global organization doing ministry work in 53 countries, scaled that from 800 employees to 2,300 employees as chairman.
Whoa. Hold on. That's a lot. First business goes from up to 400 employees?
Yes.
In how short of a window?
7 years.
Wow. And then this nonprofit that you were on the board of?
Yes.
You grew that to 2,300 employees?
Yeah, from 800 to 2,300. Yeah.
What was the name of that?
It was called Harvest Partners.
Harvest Partners.
Yeah.
And it was like missions work?
It was missions work, evangelistic work. It was a partnership involving Campus Crusade for Christ and the Jesus film. Yeah,
Very cool. How long ago was this?
Let's see, 26, almost 20 years ago.
20 years
ago. Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep going. I'm so interested now.
So simultaneous to those two things, in my later 20s, I also helped raise $5 billion of investments for my hometown of Houston.
Okay.
Which ended up bringing 5,000 jobs to the city.
Okay.
In my 30s, I eventually became chairman of a $250 million charitable foundation, doling out between $60 and $80 million a year to charities. Eventually became a board member for a seminary that does work in the Middle East. It does a lot of work with Jewish apologetics and Arabic apologetics as well. Mm-hmm. And I'm a dad. I got 3 girls, and we rock and roll and love them. And the only thing I like to do is I like to work and I like to be with my kids.
Yeah. Sounds like your day-to-day now is mainly around your real estate ventures and the nonprofit kind of philanthropy, charity kind of work you do. Is that an accurate assessment of the stuff you do?
Yeah. Historically, I've spent half my day doing work, and then the other half working in charitable endeavors. It's been probably 15, 17 years of going back and forth. Again, I'm not working 8-hour days. I'm working 8-hour days in both areas. So it's back up to almost kind of 13 to 16-hour days most days of the week. And so I can get a lot done. I can get a lot into the schedule. I've got a great team behind me professionally and also organizationally. But yeah, I spend a lot of my time thinking about those sorts of things.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So what is the real estate is the main thing now? You do commercial real estate?
Yeah.
So unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. So we started the first business, the one that grew to 400 employees that quickly. We were managing commercial real estate on behalf of third-party owners. We'd give them a firm, flat, fixed price that, hey, if your roof goes out, we're going to eat the cost. If your toilet goes out, we're going to eat the cost. We're going to give you a firm, flat, fixed price for a monthly price to manage your real estate. We realized we could make more money by owning the real estate rather than just doing that for third parties.
Sure.
So we began to do that. Over the last several years, we've been putting together groups of high net worth families, mainly from the Oriental nations, who are not China, definitely not North Korea, and
Asian. You gotta be careful.
Yeah.
The Asian nations are not the communist ones.
Correct. And so we help put together partnerships with them. They generally do not know each other, and we'll go make acquisitions on their behalf. They never generally see the buildings. They never look at what we do. They get financials once a quarter, and that's how we roll, and they love it. And so what I figured out is if you have competency, integrity, and clear communication, you can get a lot done.
Okay. And how long have you been doing this real estate venture?
Maybe a decade, something like that.
Decade.
Yeah.
And what does that kind of scale to annually, approximately?
Yeah. So we're interested in assets, not fees. And so we can deploy some months, 20 million a month in investments. Right now the whole debt market's just locked up. So you can't do anything unless you're gonna go buy cash and go pay cash, but the bid-ask spread's too wide.
Right.
So there's not really anything to buy right now.
Yeah. So some months you guys are moving between 20 million in assets, you said?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So,
very cool.
So it's not gigantic. We're not doing it on the institutional level for the most part, but it's something where we can be very, very entrepreneurial. We like sexy buildings. Think historic buildings, buildings that have strong design elements of it. We're not going to buying a Class B office building, things like that.
Sure.
So we want to have fun.
Primarily in the Houston area or nationally?
Houston region. We're getting ready to launch a $500 million fund that'll help us build solar panel covered industrial assets in the Sunbelt states.
Interesting.
So
I'm always interested in how people scale their businesses and the type of stuff they're doing. So, and this is not residential. This is commercial. So these are office buildings, or what are the buildings used for?
So most of the buildings are occupied by technology companies. So these are fairly creative historic buildings that have been refurbished to entice that sort of clientele. We have buildings where we've got James Beard Award winning restaurants in there. We've got co-working operators in there. We have food truck operators in there, different types of assets. So generally office, industrial, and retail are the three main asset types.
Got it. And the families that are coming over, they want to have assets in real estate. They're leasing these buildings back to different businesses in the area, and you guys are facilitating the deals. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So they do nothing with the building. So essentially we get a check.
Yep.
And we go buy the properties, we operate it for them, run it for them, send them financials, and send them a check every quarter.
Got it.
And so they just get mailbox money.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And it's crazy stuff. So like during COVID, we had a guy that he said, "Hey Rick, I'll put $1 million in every single property you buy." And we have a number of guys like that. But he didn't want to talk to anyone. I'd never met this guy until about 6 months ago. And so every single time we bought a property, I'd have to send someone to his house to pick up $1 million even personal check from underneath his floor mat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. And he never wanted to talk to anybody.
No. I never even went to his house.
Huh.
Yeah. I would just have to send someone there to go pick it up.
Interesting. Rich people just different, huh?
It's a different life. They roll differently. Yeah.
Don't bother me.
Yeah.
The check is underneath the doormat. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
And bring me my mailbox money.
Yeah. It's a good life.
Wow. Okay.
It's a good life.
Now, connect me to the faith aspect and how the faith drives you to want to crush it as a business owner, because I think sometimes Christians can struggle with that, right? Clearly, your faith is the driver, and I want to know why, but it also, the businesses allow you to do more things aligned with your faith. Okay, so tell me how faith has driven you into entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So if you see the need to make money as a potential enslavement vehicle, then you'll do whatever you can to get free from that. And that's a big hurdle. And the problem is once you build enough capacity up, once you build enough wealth up, it re-enslaves you to be able to manage it in an efficient manner. And so you've got to figure out a way to get in that sort of bifurcated mode where you don't worry about it as much, but then you have enough FU money to tell people to go away if you don't want to. I've got a no asshole rule, and so that's the way that we roll. We work with who we want to work with. Everyone else is they're going to leave. Now, part of that enjoyment comes from the fact that as a Christian, I can do that because I only have one master. And sometimes you got to make sure people know that they're not your master. I don't care how much money you have, you're not my master. And I've had some frank conversations about that very explicitly with some very capable people that have very, very large bank accounts. So that's probably part one of that. Part two of that is if you understand that the greatest tool that you can use to fight off the pridefulness that comes with selfishness is generosity.
That's good.
Then all your problems are solved from a money standpoint, right? We're always either needy or we have too much. And whenever we have too much, we want more. More is never enough.
It's insatiable.
Yeah. And so both of those people, the solution for both the needy and the people that have too much is generosity.
Yeah.
It's the same solution. If you don't have enough, give more away.
That's good. That's good. And because then you're not mastered by it, right? I got a buddy of mine, and he has a really good quote. He says, money is a terrible master, but a great servant.
Yeah.
So if you can learn to control your money and have it be used for you and serve people, you're going to be way better off than if you're always either living paycheck to paycheck in a scarcity mindset, or you're always needing more because you need the latest toys, because you need to flaunt, because you need to flex, because you need to show what other people, all the stuff you have, because there's this thing inside of you that to show people that you're wealthy.
That's right. That's right. There's a great saying that Lao Tzu from 2,500 years ago said, this Chinese ancient philosopher. He said that I must leave who I am in order to become that who I'm meant to be. And if you think about that, it's so true that you have to be willing to give up everything in order to move to the next level. And the man that's in the strongest negotiating point is the man that can get up from any negotiating table and walk away and not care about it. And so to get yourself in a perspective like that, where you can walk away from any table at any time, and that's the next level to having FU money, because you could FU everything.
That's interesting. Yeah. And so money just becomes a tool. It just becomes a way for you to leverage the kingdom, right? Obviously to have some degree of margin in your own personal life so that you're not under any type of stress and your family has a certain degree of quality and flexibility. But then it just becomes a tool to serve the kingdom.
Yeah. And we purposely give more away so that we stay hungry, right? It's an interesting balance. And I found that the more that I give away, the more that I get. And I've also found this is something interesting. As someone, you and I spoke beforehand about this insatiable drive to work and just this love for work. And I don't have a problem working hard. And God tells me repeatedly when I do these quarterly planning sessions that you don't realize this, Rick, but you will make more the less you work. The less you work, the more you make. Because it's not about my effort. It's about blessing. And the more that I give away, I make. And so you look at that, you're thinking, well, if my natural proclivity is just to go out there and hustle and just game, just ball all day, well, I can do that. But I make less money, and I really do make less money when I live for months and months at a time doing that. But when I just give up, and I mean, I got rid of 60% of our marketing department over the last 3 months. And our revenues, we're getting ready to have the largest quarter of our history. It's just phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. Like, you don't need to go out and kill it, because it just comes in.
Yeah. So I think that is amazing, and I'm sure people are like, man, that's great. However, how do you navigate this from? It seems like you are 30,000 feet up, right? And the mindset and all these things are clicking. Talk to the person that's watching this and they're 20 to 30 years old. They're just trying to get their first thing off the ground, right? They're trying to get that first venture off the ground. And what practical input and advice would you have for them in terms of how to go, okay, how do you go from zero to your first 7 figures?
Yeah. You've got to make that happen yourself. And the only way to make that happen is do what everyone else is not willing to do. What is everyone else not willing to do? They're not willing to go door to door and get flat out cold rejected. They're not willing to go show up at bankers' offices. They're not willing to show up at baseball games. I know the bankers' kids are playing. They're not willing to cold call. They want to text. They'll cold text. They'll cold email, but they don't want to cold call. You've got to do that which makes you most uncomfortable to get over that hurdle. I mean, that's what becoming a man is. You've got to burst through that comfort level, and your two biggest fears and your two biggest things to overcome are comfort and safety. And if you're in that perspective, 20, 30 years old, and you're looking for that next thing, you're looking for that first hurdle, you're looking for the comfort and you're looking for the safety. You don't want to look bad. Don't care about looking bad. Man, I felt so much. I remember, Ruslan, I ran for Congress a number of years ago, and I'm at my celebration party. I'm at my celebration party at night. We're having a good time and waiting for the results to come in. And my parents aren't there. My parents live 4 hours away, different TV network, everything. I get a text from my mother with a picture of me on like NBC National News showing that a race that I thought we were going to win, I had only gotten like 3% of the vote.
Whoa.
And they called it first. Like, whoa. That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I've got people at a party to celebrate my win. I got to go out there and talk to them.
Sheesh.
But that's what being a man.
Hold on, how did that speech go?
So yeah. So, these people that volunteered for me, I don't know, we may have had 50, 75 people there, something like that. And so my encouragement, well, my campaign manager got up there and gave the classic man of the arena speech by memory. And he did a good job with that. And I got up there and just said, like, look, the Christian life is about obtaining victory via loss. The more you lose, the more you gain. And the more that you accrue to who you're becoming. And if we can figure out how to turn this into a positive, we can see that God's doing something bigger and better, and he's got more things in store. And also he claims that all things work together for your good. The more things you try, therefore, are more things working for your good. If you only do one thing, you only have one thing working for your good. But if you've got 10 things going on, even if you lose at all 10 things, you still got 10 things working for you.
Yeah. Or 10 lessons you've learned from failing at something, because I'm sure you, on the other side of running from that Congress, I'm sure there's a lot of practical things you've taken from that have probably blessed and implemented all your other ventures.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, I would not go back and redo that in any way, shape, or form differently. I would still value that loss. One thing that I definitely learned is that if you can repeat the feedback loop, if you can lose faster, you can learn faster. You can get better faster. And so think about this from a compounding perspective, right? I said that I generally work between 13 to 16 hours a day historically. I'm going to turn 45 next month. And so I've got, call it 25 years of work history, but I'm working double time, which means I have 50 years of experience, but I have the energy of a 45-year-old. That's powerful. That means I can outwork someone that's 75 or 70 that has 50 years of experience, who's on the decline, but then I've got all the knowledge from that. But supposing that I fail, I personally put myself out there and I fail more frequently than they do, and I reassess, and I actually have dedicated thinking time where I re-engineer what happened, and I learn from those principles. So the next time I fail in a different way, all of a sudden I can go from having 25 years of experience to potentially having 100 years of experience. I'm not saying I do. I'm saying that mathematically you could reason that out. And by getting to that place, that's where real systemic growth happens. And so I think that's one reason why working for money just bores me. I can do it, but it's not intellectually intriguing whatsoever.
Yeah. So you're working for impact.
You're working for impact. Yeah. I want to enjoy. I mean, so we were talking before you hit record, the idea that I believe the most impactful thing that you can do with any given quantity of time is to write a book. If your scale is 100 years, if your scale is a month, maybe we just do podcasts. Right. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
And so that's what I'm thinking about. Like, how do I make the biggest impact over the next century or 500 years? And so that's the sort of thing I'm thinking about. So it involves my kids. It involves setting up a network that can support and learn, and I can build my community, because my 3 girls are going to marry 3 young men who don't know how to be men. So how do I support the men in my community to teach their sons to be men? How do you get to that point? And so I'm trying to think 50, 100 years out at this point. I eventually want to be able to think 500 years out.
Yeah, that's cool. I think what's interesting is you talked about basically kind of failing your way forward, right? So not being afraid to say, I'm going to try different things and I might fail, but even in the failure, there's a lesson there. I think that's powerful and profound in very practical ways, because a lot of people just don't try enough stuff, right? They're not willing to taste and see, and what are they interested in, and what are they good at, what are they not good at. So the way I've kind of calculated it, if you will, is your assignment for the season that you're in is usually going to be a combination of 3 things. What are you good at? What are you passionate about? And what does the market need, right? Because if you're just going off of pure passion, I'm passionate, that may not be what you're good at, right? I'm very passionate about basketball.
Yeah.
I'm 5'10" and Armenian, right? So guess who's not going to the NBA? Even though society has told me, like, follow your passion, follow what you love, what is your first love, follow your heart, right? I'm not very good at basketball, right? And there's not a huge need for a 5'10" and Armenian basketball player, right? There's just not a huge demand for my skill set. Now, the more I explored and the more I tried music and I tried YouTube and I tried podcasting, I tried all these things, I found this beautiful overlap of, hey, I'm fairly passionate about having conversations and helping people through conversations and giving my audience an insight to someone that's 45 and has done tens of millions of dollars in business and all these sorts of things. Passionate about that. I'm pretty good at it, and there's a huge need for it. And so I've been able to kind of find and stumble my way to success that way, right? Where would you say that overlap is in terms of, for you, you said you don't just work for money, but at the same time, you're not just doing 100% of what you want to do all the time. There's some degree of work to it, right? So unpack that for me. Or is it the longer you've worked, the more you've just gotten stuff off your plate that you're no longer, you've earned your way to only do things that you truly, truly enjoy?
Yeah. I think it's a little bit of both. It's a little both, right? So that 20 to 30-year-old, the goal for the 30-year-old should be to build a platform. The platform is going to be some sort of monetarily based safety there that then allows you to go explore other things, to take high-risk ventures and try those things out. So
now, by platform, are we talking like online platform? Or are we going that direct?
No, I'm talking about a business and a team that you can count on, that you can say, okay, this business, this team pays the bills.
Okay.
From there, on an ARR, so recurring revenue portion, from there, everything you do above that, you should be taking the maximal type of risk that's disproportionate to the offsetting reward.
Okay.
So you're looking for disproportionate rewards to the risk level. And when you find that, those asymmetrical balances, then you go all in on that with everything above that platform. You never touch the platform, because that platform, that's your safety net. That's your FU money. Again, I feel sorry saying that, but that's what everyone knows it as. And so that's the goal, to kind of get to that point. That might be, a $5 million a year business, maybe $10 million a year, depending on what kind of wife you're married to.
Sure.
And so from there is the jumping off point. Now, from there also, you have a little bit more leverage to go take, when I ran for Congress, I took 6 months off. The whole team just ran the business. I didn't do anything. Yeah, that's a different level of complexity, different level of organization. That means you've got people that have the ability to be able to manage an organization already on staff. But I think you're looking for something like that. You're looking for the ability to have a platform business that you can add to, but then you can make disproportionate investments to go and grow and see what else happens. Plan on losing that money, but sometimes it'll work out. But also be in the place where your goal is to be able to do what you want more than what you don't want to do. But you have to take that medicine early on. There's no game where you skip doing the crap work. Where you skip the cold calling, you skip the long nights. There's no scenario where you're working 8 hours a day and you're making $1 million a year on a reliable basis, because if you're doing that, you're probably getting lucky. And people that get lucky and make money fast, they lose it even faster. There's a correlation between the speed at which you accrue the wealth is the speed at which you lose the wealth, and it happens generationally. That's why the second and third generations generally lose most of the wealth.
That's interesting. So you're saying people who get rich quick tend to not be able to sustain it because you got lucky. You didn't develop the character and or the skill set and the leadership abilities to manage it and scale it even further.
Yeah, you didn't take your hard knocks. Yeah.
That's good.
There's an old saying that if you're a hammer, you should strike. If you're anvil, then you should bear. That means like if you're the hammer, you're going to go out there and you're going to be the offense. You're going to go out there and do some damage. You're going to go out there and kill some stuff. If you're the anvil, you're used to getting beat up. You just got to be tough. I'm the anvil. I'm just tough. Like I don't go on the offense very often. But the anvil, if you ever looked at a picture of an anvil is a big block of metal. It probably has 20 or 30 times the metal that's in the hammer. And you actually would use two sides of an anvil can handle two hammers, and they can fashion swords on both of them. The anvil is just a big block of metal that just gets beat up over and over and over again. But it's the strongest point. The benefit about being the anvil is, imagine if you could turn yourself into an anvil that learned over and over again from getting hit over and over and over again, beat up, and then you could take that anvil and actually strike with the anvil. That would be devastating. That would be devastating. And I think that's what the man who is pursuing his growth and pursuing building a platform and pursuing building something that's unique, that's looking over 100 years or 500 years perspective, that man has the capacity, if they take enough hits, that they can become a anvil. And every once in a while, that anvil will turn to the hammer, and it will have 1,000 times more magnitude impact than any hammer would have.
That's interesting. Okay, I like that. I like that a lot, because I think we're getting into perseverance and character and consistency and just kind of weathering the storm regardless of what happens. So it sounds like what you're getting at is learn to do the hard stuff, right? If you do it as easy, life will be hard. If you do it as hard, life will be easy, right? So you learn to do the hard stuff, and then over time, you could push back if you want. Your heart will either change, and you'll learn to love and appreciate to do the hard stuff, or you'll earn yourself the ability to not do the hard stuff that maybe you had to initially do to pay your dues, or a combination of the two. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, you do the hard stuff, you become a man. There's a lot of 50, 60-year-old boys that are working for very, very large corporations. Boys that have never really had to work because they went and got their first job, and they sat in that office the entire time, never making decisions, never had to confront anyone, nothing, none of that. And so I think that's what we're seeing right now. Those boys that are 50 and 60 years old, they're boys, never had true men to look up to, and they're in their 20s, 25, 30 years old. And I think we're seeing that multi-generational boyhood be able to grow up in America. But I think that's what it is. They're not used to perseverance. Now, when we talk about pursuit, we're also talking about this indomitable will that's supposed to be behind us. And there's a poet, Emily Wilcox, that she says that if you will be something, you have to will it to be. If you will be something, you have to will it to be. That your will has to drive the becoming of your very, very life. And then in a few verses later, she says this. She says something that has like a theological bent to it. Like why are you talking about theological bents in a poem that's about pursuit? She says this. She says that she defines the will. She says the will is the offspring of the deathless soul.
Interesting.
The will is the offspring of the deathless soul. Now, the deathless soul, by definition, is something that's eternal. It's something that sits, and everything that's eternal sits outside of time. And the deathless soul begets the will. And so what she's saying is that if your will is strong enough, it's indomitable enough, your will overcome the constraints of materiality and space and build something that's eternal. That's a pretty strong thing to do.
Yeah.
That's a pretty strong thing to do.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's hopefully practical to our audience here, especially a lot of the young entrepreneurs and the people that are kind of just getting things off the ground and trying to figure it out, right? And where do I make the investment? How do I get things off the ground? And I think you're operating from a level that's a couple seasons ahead of these folks, but I think the practical side of it is really helpful. So let's switch gears a little bit. We were talking a little bit offline about a book that you're writing, and it's kind of, you said, an overlap of history, faith, theology, business, and politics, and kind of all the above, right? But you made this really interesting point about a critique I hear often from skeptics or atheists is Christianity has, quote unquote, myths that you see in other traditions and cultures, right? And that's kind of their pushback. It's like, well, this story about the flood is in these cultures, so therefore the Bible is wrong because it copied this story, or the Bible isn't the true source of it. It's not the primary source because it copied these stories. But you had a very interesting point that you shared with me. I want you to, could you unpack that a little bit in terms of where, and you're going to reveal some of this in your upcoming book, but break that down for me a little bit.
Yeah. So the primary advocate of that sort of philosophy was a gentleman by the name of Joseph Campbell. If you listen to Jordan Peterson, you'll hear rumblings of Joseph Campbell. I don't think he ever mentions Joseph Campbell, but Joseph Campbell is the guy that attacked Christianity because he says that he looks at all these myths. He studied all these myths, and he says that Christianity looks like it's a reflection of some of those things. Like we took pieces of that and created Christianity. What the mistake he makes mistake some of these other atheists make is they invent their own definition for God. Like classically, the definition of God is the maximal being possible. It's not a complicated thing. It's the maximal being possible, who definitionally must sit outside of time. Now, if Joseph Campbell is looking at this, he's looking at the 50,000-year-old bear cults in Japan. He's looking at he's looking at the work of the Iliad and the Iphigenian sacrificial system there that happened. He's looking at all these things that happened before Christianity. He's seeing elements of this in Christianity. And then he's looking at what happens after Christianity. We start some churches, we get a pope, we get all this cute stuff. And he's saying, well, yeah, you guys are just copying what works. Two points. The first is the minor point, that the greatest lies contain a hint of the truth. No lie gets spread unless it contains some hint of the truth. That's why gossip is so salacious. But the greater mistake that Joseph Campbell makes, as well as some of these atheists, is they misconstrue the definition of God. God definitionally sits outside of time. And if he's the maximal being possible, he should be able to effectuate his very will and his very pure pleasure across all timelines simultaneously. He's as present today as he is tomorrow, right now. If that's true, then a God who, as Lewis says, struck down into nature like lightning at the very manifestation of Jesus Christ, that happened one time in history. Joseph Campbell's saying that is just a reflection of what happened before, and that you see that its appearances afterwards in churches and mosques and whatever else might be the derivative of that in the timeline. But what he misses is that it would be necessary for a God that strikes down into nature, that strikes down into time like lightning, for that to be a ripple both forward and backwards in time. So that the manifestation of ultimate truth would necessarily have to happen one time in history, which would be the cross of Christ, in my opinion. And from there, everything backward looked into it, and it shifted all of time, not only forward, but also backwards.
Interesting. So are you saying that the deposit of truth on this side of eternity, Jesus, almost impacted history, like what came before him? Or are you saying that God in his providence, because I've always thought of it as like God in his providence can reveal whatever he wants to whoever he wants, whenever he wants, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not that Christianity copied the Greeks in some of the moral aspects. It's that they were able to have this knowledge, the logos, without knowing it's Jesus, because of common grace, right?
Yes.
But it sounds like you're saying something more than that.
Yes. So I'm saying, like, let's look at Plato, for instance. 400 years before Christ, something like that. You read in Plato's Republic, I believe it's chapter 5, there's this curious little chat about imagining the most disgusting, the most evil man, the most unjust man, and it's corollary, which is the best possible man, the most just man. And he says that the most evil man would have to look as pure as possible, but he would be as religious as possible, but underneath he would be as evil as potentially imaginable, but he would be able to use that as a cover. He would use his perceived goodness as a cover-up. But the worst man, but the best man possible, if he looked like he was the best man possible, he would get credence. He would get lauded with things that would boost his ego, so he could not be the best man possible from that. No, he would have to look like an evil man. In fact, he would have to be condemned for being blasphemous. He would have to be condemned so much that you would have to be destroyed with floggings and whippings. He would have to be stripped bare to see what kind of man he was, to be inspected. And if you take the language that's used not only in Psalms but also in Isaiah, and you take that, which is also obviously reflected in the crucifixion stories of Christ, you see almost a verbatim usage,
same language, same words,
the manifestation of Plato's prophecy about what the best possible perfect man would look like, realized in the natural person of Christ. Now, the interesting thing about that, you look at Bart Ehrman, one of the foremost atheists about this. Even he recognizes that there are 15 references about the death of Christ outside of Scripture. Now, what's interesting in that is if there are third-party references about the death of Christ, then therefore there is a third-party reference about the life of Christ, because anything that died had to have lived.
Sure.
And so it necessarily means that Plato forecasts, he prophesies about Christ. Why did he do that? Because the Greeks were never able to get their philosophy and their religion together. They never understood they were the same thing. It was veiled. I mean, there are 100 cases like this. I mean, you've got the Pharaoh Akhenaten 2,000 years before Christ, he writes a hymn. That hymn shows up in Psalms 104, almost verbatim. What does he do? This Pharaoh, he takes a plural society with all these gods, similar gods to what you have in the Roman society, and he says, nope, there's one God. I think it was the son of the sun god Re, which was Atum, and he writes a hymn to the sun deity, and the hymn to the sun deity ends up almost verbatim in Psalms chapter 104. It's striking to see what happens, and it's inevitably backward facing because they had no concept of a monotheistic culture. And what did he do by claiming his monotheism? He assassinated all the false gods.
That's so interesting. So the way you're reconciling this is that because God is outside of time, that then he can sparse himself, pop out in different cultures, different aspects all throughout time, even before the event is happening.
Yeah. And it's happening not only in history, but it happens in literature. It happens in music. He pops up everywhere. Let me give you this idea from music, since we're both musicians. You look at traditional Western music, right? You generally have 3 chords. Sometimes you have some other chords, but if it's a 3-chord system, you generally have a 1, 4, and 5, right? Those are the 3 primary chords. And if you're going to make a song you want children to be joyous about, children that are just as innocent, that respond naturally to music that they enjoy, you'd have it in a major key. So you have 3 chords, and obviously every chord is generally 3 notes, right? And a 3-note chord is generally built out of a major third and a minor third. Major third, minor third, yeah. And so it's 3 notes, 3 chords made out of thirds. 3, 3, 3. You have a trinity of trinities that drives the joy of all children globally.
Yeah.
Now, what would happen as a musician if you inverted any of that? If you took the minor third plus the major third and you inverted those, you'd have a minor keyed song that would make children weep. There is truth built into every aspect of our society, and it reflects God. The very existence of music, which is a trinity of trinities, is something that it combats this misperception that the 3-in-1 God is illogical. It just defeats it overwhelmingly through the simplicity of children.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think music to me has always been a way to prove that there is a God. Like the fact that like there's these 12 notes and there's this scale and these chords that all come together, and they could speak even without words. That it could speak to you, speak to your soul, speak to your emotions. Has always been like, man, there's clearly something here that's otherworldly, right?
Yes.
And it's hard to articulate it, but I think it just proves that. Man, that's such a cool way to describe it and to look at it. Let me ask you this: do you think that maybe Christians have struggled with what you're describing because of a very fundamentalist mindset of like, nope, KJV only, right? It has to be this way. It's very linear. It's only to these people that got this collection of scriptures through this translation. Right? I'm being a bit hyperbolic here, right? And anyone outside is out. And so even if they quoted Psalms and it's almost parallel, even if they had the same flood story, even if they had these other things, we look at Christianity and the story of Jesus as so exclusive, even though in Romans 2, Paul is saying the Gentiles, no, they had a law unto themselves, even though they had no law, right? And that's kind of some of what you're getting at as well, right? That passage. Do you think that our relationship with radical fundamentalism and some of the I would say the fringes within Christianity kind of influence the rest of the church to not kind of receive some of this that you're talking about? And then when confronted with this by skeptics, people collapse, and then you get deconstruction, and then you get all these other things that happen.
Yeah. So I think there's an element of people in the church that are maybe a little bit more mainstream or a little more fundamentalist that look at scripture, sola scriptura, only. And what they're doing is the same thing that the atheists are doing. They believe in mechanical causation as the highest possible aim. This is what the capital S, the scientism followers believe, that mechanical causation is the highest thing. Now, I would submit for your consideration, Ruslan, that the mental capacity to understand the written word of God is lesser than what the imaginative capacity could be.
Okay, so you're going, instead of just understanding it intellectually, that the creative imagination aspect is more important from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's confirmatory. I think it's
Okay.
confirmatory. You saw this a little bit in Mark chapter 2. There's this story where these men come and they can't get in the house. Jesus is teaching in the house, and they go up to the rooftop and they start tearing the roof apart. He's got mud and all sorts of stuff. And they leave. They put the man down through the roof in the bed to be healed.
Yep. That's my 2-year-old's favorite Bible story right now. We read that every night. It's the she calls it the owie story.
Yeah.
The man had an ouchie and Jesus fixed it.
Yeah. And so the scribes in the room that say, hey, he can't do this, and Jesus, it says that Jesus saw the faith of the men that let him down, not the man that was paralyzed. He saw the faith of the men, and then he imputed that faith and said, "Son, your sins are forgiven." He imputes the faith of third parties to forgive the sins of the crippled, and then he intuits what's happening in the minds of the scribes that are sitting there that are judging him for blaspheming, and he says, "What's more difficult, to tell a man your sins forgiven, or to say rise up and walk?" And he says, "Rise up and walk," and the man leaves. Now, what to the scribes, what just happened was that Jesus just confirmed that he is God, because he takes the role of the third party and says, "You don't deserve this, but I'm going to give it to you. But I'm also going to take on your sins. I'm going to forgive your sins, even though I wasn't the one offended." He takes that on. He takes the role of God on in front of the scribes. So you have a horizontality of that realization of who he is. But you have something even greater here, Ruslan. You have something greater. As they tear off that roof that was made primarily of mud, you see the mud falls into the room. And at the very feet of Jesus and the very feet of the scribes is the mud through which, the same mud that you and I were made of, and that Christ, the Word, breathe into to turn that mud into the first man. And what do you do when you look up? You see the sky, and the heavens declare the glory of God, the earth and all of its manifold beauty. And so you have a verticality of the revelation of truth and a horizontal revelation of truth in that very moment, in that very story. And that's what he does. He breaks open the Word and lets you see the beauty and the magnificence through the Word, through the realization of the metaphorical use and the allegorical use of the text.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Wow. Okay, Rick, we got to have you back on sometime, man. That was great. Maybe when your book comes out, we can go a little deeper on this stuff. For people that want to learn more about you, right? The Rick Walker Show on YouTube. Is that correct? We'll tag it in the title of this video. And then how else can they get a hold of you if they want to reach out?
Twitter, Facebook. I'm all at rickwalker.com, but it's Rick Walker TX.
Rick Walker, because you're a
Texan guy. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for doing this, guys. Follow Rick Walker, check him out, and I'm sure we'll have him on once the new book is out. All right, we're out of here. Peace. Hey, thank you so much for watching that video. Listen, I believe one of the best ways to build any business or any venture is to build your own online presence, specifically through the platform of YouTube. That's what we've been able to do. So if you would like to see a free training put together by our COO, Zach Sparazzo, on the #1 ingredient and the step needed to begin to build your own online platform, make sure to hit the pinned comment below and sign up for our weekly email list, where we'll get that to you right away, and I'll be sending you different emails about lessons I'm learning in real time, doing everything that we're doing here at King's Dream Entertainment. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.